Hello and welcome to the Game Football Podcast from The Times. In modern football, so much is made of tactics, teamwork, fitness and finances. But sometimes you just need a brilliant footballer to whack a free kick into the top corner and all is right in the world. And if you're really lucky, it happens twice in the same game. On today's show, we'll be discussing those two remarkable goals by Declan Rice and, as Arsenal beat Real Madrid, asking, are they already through to the semi-finals? We'll also chat about some other fantastic goals as Aston Villa have a difficult night in Paris. And we'll take a quick look at Rafinha as he equals Lionel Messi's Barcelona record for goal involvements in a Champions League campaign. I'm Tom Clark, and joining me today we have the chief correspondent for The Times and Sunday Times, Martin Samuel, the football correspondent for the Sunday Times, Jonathan Northcroft, and the former footballer turned journalist, Gregor Robertson, is here too. What a bloody set of Champions League fixtures that was, lads? Now, I wanted to ask before we get right into the action, and Martin, you were at both games. Congrats, well done on making it back as well, by the way. Mm-hmm. Props to the Eurostar for getting you here. I just want your first reaction to the Declan Rice goals, for both goals, because I was in the office, and the Times office late at night can be quite a quiet place. Everyone head down, focusing on their work. And with it 0-0, you know, you're thinking, I really need a kind of big story here. So I'm not going to lie that my reaction to the first goal was, thank God for that. But my reaction to the second one was, holy fudge, he's done it again. So loud that I think even a few of my colleagues on the news desk who were focusing on far more serious matters turned their heads to go, what on earth is going on over there? Martin, unbelievable.
It was absolutely a fantastic moment, and I'm sorry to disappoint you, but when you're working, you don't. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. You're looking down, you're looking up. Is he taking it right? And then he scores, and you at that moment you're sort of looking at what time it was and trying to remember what the offence was, and was it an offence, and was it this, and was it that, and the piece that you've got half written, you're then thinking, right, what does this do to it? And right, now I've got to change tack. Now I've got to message Tom and tell him there's absolutely no way you get this as a runner. You will get this as a piece in its entirety on the whistle. Really, really boring stuff.
Never got that text as well, by the way.
I never got that text because it didn't send. Because everyone was texting.
You didn't see the goal and you missed your runner.
Well, no, that's right. Well, no, I saw the goal, but I
you don't get the same.
No, you don't. The only time I can remember just standing there and repeatedly saying a word that it means you won't be able to play this on Apple without asking your parents' permission, is at the Champions League final when they scored when Man U scored the second time. Because I was on the phone to the office.
That's a high bar, fair enough.
But I was on the phone to the office saying, what do we do now? Do we have to go, with some god-awful match report that just says extra time being played in the first edition? And as we're having this conversation, they scored what we now know is the winning goal. And all I can remember saying for 3 or 4 times before I said anything else was fuck me, basically. Sorry, kids.
Well, it's not far off everyone's reaction, I think, to Declan Rice.
So a lot of people might have had that reaction with Declan Rice.
Yeah.
But if you're in the middle of trying to file a running copy, a completely different set of emotions and pressures or whatever take over. So I do apologise that I wasn't running around the press box with my trousers on my head, but but I was at work.
Yeah, Johnny, you running around your living room with your trousers on your head?
No, I wasn't. No. But I was. I mean, it was just a wonderful sight.
Yeah.
So there's nothing like seeing a ball struck beautifully, hard, firmly. Nick Hornby wrote about it in Fever Pitch that there's something about when the ball clips the woodwork on the way in as well. Just makes it all the more special.
Off the crossbar down and then bounces back up again.
It's sort of childlike wonder.
Great free kick goals, you remember, like Paul Breitner's and stuff like that.
I mean, when they nestle in the stanchion, which doesn't really happen anymore. That's the ultimate.
No.
But the way the second free kick just sort of clipped, I think, a little bit of the post, made it even better. And there's something beautiful about seeing Declan Rice do it. he's just, and his interview afterwards was sort of heightened that. He's just the most appealing character out there in terms of, like, he still seems slightly surprised that he's Declan Rice, the footballer, and yet he also knows how good he is, and he's got an ability to just share his joy at doing stuff, which sort of came through in the celebrations. The only thing, maybe it's
no.
It is. I've got to a certain age where I shout at the telly a lot.
Yeah,
and maybe it's sort of having seen too much football, a lot of football. That second free kick, right? What was the wall doing? What was Courtois thinking of? The first one's, it's a bad wall, but it's such an unbelievable free kick. You don't expect him to go round from that angle. The second one, which comes 10 minutes later, you know, he's got an even worse wall. He's got a 4-man wall. He's got Arsenal players then making a second wall that's clearly going to collapse. I was yelling at the telly before
I reckon
it went
he could
in.
have put the entire Real Madrid team on the goal line and it still would have gone in, that second one.
I don't
Right
know.
in the top corner.
There's a lot of this.
I don't know. I mean, but that's not to take anything away from Declan Rice. I was just like, it was joyful, but I was also, I don't know, slightly annoyed at for no reason. I wanted Arsenal to score as well, but I was annoyed at Courtois.
I was delighted. Greg, I mean, just briefly on Johnny's mentioned it there, the interviews after the game. You've written lots of pieces about Nicolas Jova and his importance to this Arsenal team. I thought it was so wonderful, the idea that him and Saka were stood there. Just hit it, mate. Go on.
It was even more casual than that. It was, if you feel it, go for it.
Yeah.
So
That's
nice.
a great thing to say in the middle of a pitch at the Emirates.
Yeah.
When there's 60,000
And
people there.
Jova,
you
like
Real
the
Madrid.
clips of
if
him
you
going,
feel it, mate.
Whip it, Declan, whip it. And you're like,
The first one, there was like the element of surprise, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And so that's what makes the second one all the more remarkable, really. And also, just thinking about it from like the sort of technical point of view, the confidence you need to be playing with to strike the ball like that.
Yeah.
You need to strike it with a bit of abandon, actually, to get it to do that. It's like, it's not all about, I don't know, how you approach the ball and where you're going to strike it. You've got to strike right through it and like almost risk slashing it into high and wide. You've got to do that to achieve that. So that, watching someone do that, just at the height of confidence and sort of technical ability colliding is just a joy.
On that, I spoke to David Moyes yesterday because I wanted to give him a call because he wrote a column for us during the Euro 2020s, which was when he had Declan as a player.
Yeah.
And he was trying to persuade Declan to get forward more and shoot. And I remember him saying in this column, he kicks like a horse, which I always thought was a great phrase. And he sees that in training, that abandon you're talking about. He was seeing that from Declan, who at that point was even, he just had a season as a centre-half and then become a holding midfielder. But David was seeing him in training, playing with, when he was playing with freedom, just smashing ball after ball in the net. And it's been a process of bringing that into the game. And he said himself in his interview afterwards that he could still do more of that. But I mean, what we saw from a technical point of view was extraordinary. So if you can get that onto the pitch more, you'll score tons.
One of the most famous goals, if not perhaps the most famous goal in the history of English football, is just about hitting the ball with abandon. Because Jeff Hurst, the people on the pitch, I think it's all over. It is now. Jeff, by his own admission, has always said that all he was trying to do was just kick it as far as he could, to take, because he knew there was no time left in the game. So if he, great big running track and stuff like that, just kick it towards the goal. The worst that can happen is it goes miles wide and someone's got to go and get the ball and then the final whistle will blow. And that was it.
Yeah, he knows that if he gets it on target, the linesman's going to give England the goal anyway.
Exactly. We had him
right, back to Arsenal. I've got the two Scots here.
It does sound a bit silly to say, but like half of the art of that and him being able to execute that is it's like the psychology of it. I remember there are certain things that are, when you're a footballer, like drilling a pass like a switch that's really low to the grass. It's a really hard skill to do. When you do it, you've got to really commit to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're a little bit inhibited and there's some, you're maybe not playing well, you won't do it.
Yeah.
Or you'll be like, you'll try and do it and it won't come off. So that's what I mean. He was in full flow there. You could see it the way he struck that ball. You can't strike the ball like that unless you're at the absolute apex of your confidence.
And he was, the other thing with his performance against Real Madrid, Declan, was that even if he doesn't score the 2 goals, you'd put him in the top 2 or 3 players on the field.
Yeah, that's very important.
Without a shadow of, just the work he did in midfield. They were fantastic, Arsenal. I mean, in the second half, particularly, they were exceptional. But he was tremendous throughout. He really was. His work rate, his use of the ball, his intelligence, his game intelligence, everything about him was perfect. The strange thing is, the only thing you worry about is when someone really turns it on against Real Madrid. Is that the next thing the next thing that happens is Real Madrid in 150
No,
million
they don't need him. No, they don't need
Half
him.
the England team. in the
But
Real Madrid team.
exactly, yeah.
They don't need him. Johnny,
that's-
just taking up on Gregor's point about that psychology, because I wanted to just come back to free kicks and talking about seeing free kicks, because it also made me think, sitting in the office, we don't see that many free kicks goals, not at that level in this bigger game of this magnitude, Gregor, that you're talking about. And thinking about the things you were saying, Gregor, about the psychology, you think about like David Beckham, the amount of free kicks he misses as well, but he took them all because he thought he was going to score them all. The Cristiano Ronaldo thing of him stood over the ball. This is normal. Those clips that you've seen of him pep talking himself because he just thinks he's going to score all the time. That was so wonderful about it as well.
It was. I mean, there's a couple of things there. I spoke to I can never remember his last name, but there's a Polish sort of sports scientist out there who's a ball striking expert, and he specialises in free kicks. And his argument is actually that very few people are really good at them because very few people actually strike the ball properly.
Right.
And Ronaldo's horrendous, by the way. I mean,
Right.
He would use Ronaldo, that knuckleball, as like, it happened, you get away with it once, but he says that's a better strike in open play than it is from a dead ball situation. The Brazilians are the kind of masters of it, and you could go back into the Janino that played for Lyon and all these guys. But Beckham, he said, was the best probably England have had.
Right.
No surprise. But I mean, when you look at Declan strike the ball, that's better than Beckham because he gets more power on it. I wonder if we see less or fewer because we've now got set piece coaches and it is actually quite a low percentage play trying to score from a free
it's
kick.
very low. I mean, Roberto Carlos, who was this legendary free kick taker, if you look at his statistics, they're dreadful.
He only scored about 3.
Absolutely.
They were just absolute
They
worldies.
were just absolutely
Amazing.
incredible goals. Every single one of them burns on the memory, but actually there's not many at all. I think it's more to do with him playing for West Ham, to be fair.
Do you think?
'Cause he never scored one. When
What,
he was with
Roberto
West Ham.
Carlos?
No.
When did he play for West Ham?
Declan Rice never scored one at West Ham, and if you look at it now, James Ward-Prowse, greatest free kick taker in the country, signs for West Ham. How many has he got since he's been at West Ham? Zip.
The real reason for the muted reaction from Martin Samuel in the stadium.
Good point.
In the stadium.
Absolutely zip.
Just to finish on Declan Rice, is this, you touched on it, Johnny, with speaking with David Moyes, who obviously knows even far greater than us, but is there this next stage in Declan Rice's evolution now? He's 26. Gregor, you've talked about it a lot before about seeing him in this Arsenal team and being like, go and take the game, take it and drag it forward up the pitch. Is this a tease to what he could do? Because he talked about having that confidence.
Yeah, I actually think there's a slight Declan Rice problem, and it's not Declan Rice's problem, it's England's problem.
Right.
But that is exactly what we're seeing.
Nobody.
Well, exactly. Who's the number 6? Because we're seeing him evolve as a player. Arteta's been using him almost as a second striker in games recently, pushing him up alongside Mourinho, beyond Mourinho at times, because he's such a great runner as much as anything else. Disciplined in terms of, and he'll do it all day for the team. And his number 6 skills are kind of okay, but I suspect he was playing there because he'd been a centre half before, and I think you're naturally seeing a number 8 now, but that does leave the England.
That leaves Thomas Tuchel with a problem.
England haven't got a defensive midfield player. That's the problem.
Can you do one for Arsenal and one for England?
Yeah, it has been.
You could.
He's really good at both.
Yeah.
That's the thing you got to say. Yeah. What you do feel now is that he's got more effect on the game and far more to offer from a more advanced position, because you do feel watching Arsenal that Arsenal are better when he's playing in that left channel and attack. Even the header in the first half, he's good at time and runs into the box too. And
I have to say, Partey was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
partly that was a great number 6 performance,
absolutely.
and the signing Zubimendi. So that's a 6. So that looks like his future. It's going to be 8.
at club level, you can solve it. You can solve it in one transfer window. You just buy the defensive midfield player. The problem is England haven't got it.
Yeah.
So there's only one guy that you look at and you go, well, so he's got to be the guy that sits, and he's got to be the guy that holds, unless you can properly coach the 6 and the 8 to work like pistons, like Petit and Vieira are in the great Arsenal team, where they're so completely in tune that one goes, the other stays, the next time the other one goes, the other one stays. And that was a fabulous central midfield.
4-4-2 with Bellingham and Rice. It's coming home, isn't it?
Lampard and Gerrard.
Bellingham doesn't want to do that. I mean, you know, I think you saw a conversation with Carlo Ancelotti on Tuesday night that suggested how much Bellingham wanted to make sure that Martin Odegaard didn't get another kick. And so, unless you are going to put the work into coaching those two, and to get this understanding, and it's never worked for England in the past. We had Gerrard and Lampard, where you're thinking, well, just play like Petit and Vieira, just play like those guys, but it never worked. Then someone's just got to play the bongos every now and then, you know, like it's just one of those, isn't it? You know, like you can't all be the lead guitarist. Someone you got to go, mate, you're on bongos. I'm sorry, but that's it. And that's where Declan Rice is for England, because we haven't got anybody else.
We'll worry about bongo duty for the World Cup to come. I want to come back to Arsenal. We've talked understandably about Declan Rice, but just before we talk about some other specific players, because I want to talk about Miles Lewis-Skelly as well. Martin, this was a fantastic Arsenal performance. Johnny talks about Thomas Partey, but particularly that second half. Maybe one of the best Mikel Arteta performances of his time at Arsenal.
And the only reason, under normal circumstances, say this had been 3-0 to Real Madrid, you'd be going, this game is dead. And the only reason that you're looking at it going, there might just be a spark of life in this, is because that's the best second half performance I've seen all season from any team. But the best first half performance I've seen from any team this season was Real Madrid at home to Manchester City, and they were 2-0 up at half time. And you're thinking, right, if they do that again, then you really have got a game. And the biggest problem that Arsenal have got from here is, what do you do? What do you do? You're 3-0 up. So you go, right, we are 3 goals better than this lot. You know, we were. I mean, that's not a fluke result. We were 3 goals better than Real Madrid that night. We go to the Bernabeu, we play exactly the same way, and we try and win 6-0 on aggregate. You know, and that's what we do. Or do you go there and you go, right, we're 3-0 up. Let's not do anything stupid. Let's just sit here, let's hold this, and you know.
So an Arsenal fan posted his lineup for the second leg, and it had like Zinchenko up top, Marino in midfield, Kieran Tierney on the wing, back 5,
Tony
just
Adams
like
centre half.
just sitting, sitting.
It, mate. You know,
You got to go with a bit of caution. Yeah, you have to.
Caution.
Yeah, you've got to try and protect what you have. I don't think you can go out and play. You know, you still play sensible football and try and keep it when you win it back.
But I thought they controlled the game quite well. It wasn't like they were flying at Real Madrid, was it? They controlled the game. I thought that was the thing that they did best.
They're the best side in the country, maybe Europe, at avoiding counterattacks. And counterattack is Real Madrid's biggest weapon. So I do think Real Madrid have got a structural problem in this tie, if you want to put it that way. And I'm not. They clearly need to score the first goal and score it quite early over there, and then just hope that psychology does the rest. I don't know if I think you just play the same way, you know. And I think there's caution built into the way Arsenal play anyway. I think when you see teams go and pick the 11 defenders, it doesn't work, does it?
And you get this thing as well, where the biggest problem is where you get caught between. Fall between 2 stools, and the game that I remember that was the absolute epitome of that. Arsenal go to AC Milan and get beat 4-0 in the San Siro, and they come back and it's dead. I can remember I did the first leg. I didn't bother going to the second leg because they lost 4-0 away. This is all over. It's And so I'm watching it, and AC Milan turned up, and they didn't quite know how to play. They didn't know whether to go, we'll just beat them 8-0 on aggregate. That's what we'll do, or we'll hold it. And they sort of played this nothing game. And at half time, Arsenal were 3-0 up. And I'm sitting at home thinking, I'm about to miss the greatest comeback in the history of European football. This is just absolute. But it was perfect, because I'm trying to remember who the manager of AC Milan was. But he obviously got them all in at half time and went, right, now what we do is we defend a 1-0 lead. Now, is
that you can do
50 years, 60 years of Italian football history based around how to sit on a 1-0 lead. And AC Milan came out in the second half, and it was never in doubt. It was ridiculous. It went from this is going to be the greatest comeback you've ever seen. By 70 minutes, you couldn't hear a peep in the stadium, because everyone knew AC Milan have got this. They've got this. It's, we're just defending a 1-0 lead.
Some
now.
good omens for Arsenal.
And it just focused the attention.
Johnny, I just wanted to ask you kind of a similar question to Martin about Arteta, and obviously hope they can get through this second leg, this performance. This is a huge moment for him in his Arsenal career, isn't it? Given the struggles they've had in the league this season, not running Liverpool close, if they can get over the line and beat this great Real Madrid team in the Champions League, for him as a coach, it's a huge moment.
Gosh, yeah, he's got an opportunity to. I mean, where that sits within the Arsenal pantheon, an Arsenal fan would need to tell me, but they haven't won the Champions League. Wenger never won the Champions League. There is a real opportunity. One final. Exactly.
Only reached one final.
There's such a chance to do it for him now. I know there's other obstacles, but given the question marks that some Arsenal fans still do have about him, because of the league, rightly, I think, because it's been a real missed opportunity this season for them in the league. I saw them against Everton at the weekend, and even in that game, what are you doing? You're putting no pressure on Liverpool. You're playing such a kind of half-committed game in an attacking, creative sense, because there's that caution that I talked about.
Yeah.
But caution often helps you win a cup.
Yeah.
And it could be that springboard. If you think of Klopp's first trophy with Liverpool was the Champions League, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So this could be the thing that unlocks everything for Arteta.
One thing you should say is this was a bit of an outlier as a performance. It was so different. There was so much more pace and purpose about everything they did. And again, when now they have Saka back in the team, you just realise.
I was going to say, I need to talk about Saka and Miles Lewis-Skelly, because we were saying before we started recording, in very different ways, but just quickly on Saka, this was the first time I'd seen him and realised that he is like the God tier level of where you terrify the opposition and make your team that have looked pretty average, as you say, Johnny, for a long couple of weeks, go, hang on, we can beat Real Madrid. And it was a lot of it was down to the fact that they had Saka on the pitch. And they had that as an outball. I mean, absolutely remarkable, wasn't it? Just to watch that, Gregor, in terms of what he does for that team.
Yeah, I mean, even in terms of winning the free kicks, there were. I think it was the first one in particular. He got the ball, and like most players, I think there were like 2 or 3 Real Madrid players sort of between him and the goal. Quite close proximity. A lot of people just lay the ball backwards, but he just held on to it, backed himself to be strong enough to kind of roll. I think it was Alaba.
Took him on a run, didn't he?
Yeah, took him on the run and then drew the foul. And that kind of thing happens. Obviously, that led to the goals. But that kind of thing happens all the time. Yeah. All the time.
He did it in the first minute as well, didn't he? But practically, I think Saka very early on won a free kick right on the edge of the box.
He gets the ball, he draws, he elicits fear, anxiety. He draws players towards him, defenders, like numerous defenders. That creates space for others. And so, often he leads them a merry dance, but if not, it's like he can start the combinations in the space he's opened up, as other people can take advantage of it.
Runs off the ball is sensational as well. That ability to just time the run to get the Odegaard pass.
Yes.
So that's 2 questions you're asking a defender, isn't it? I could hold it, run at you, or I'll lay it off and then I'll be behind you.
It's the one where he goes on the outside and like wriggles his body underneath the defender as well. Because everyone's like, oh, he's left-footed. He's going to go inside. He's going to go. And he's like, nope, I've gone that way. See you later.
Yeah.
Miles Lewis-Skelly as well, just quickly, obviously having an incredible season. But again, just acting the big I am on the biggest stage against the biggest opposition. And it's just absolutely wonderful. Gregor, watching it made me think of something you said recently about having slight similarities with Jude Bellingham in terms of the way he carries himself on the pitch.
Left 100 Bellingham too, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And Jude was saying to the ref, just watch that one.
Yeah.
Did you see that? No. Just sort of dragged his studs down him a little bit, very subtly. But yeah, from the very moment, I think, was it the City game where he was booked before he even got on the pitch?
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
And then another time when he came off and he was against Spurs, I think it was, and he was geeing up the crowd and all this. He's 18.
He's a character,
He's got swagger, and like that's great. I have to be brutally honest. There have been times this season where I've watched him. I'm still not entirely sure. Like he's Arsenal's long-term left back. He's quite
Really?
Well, I'm wrong. I realised I'm wrong. Like he's so unconventional. He's like he's got a bum like John McGinn's. He gets the ball, steps into midfield sometimes, gets the ball, and you think, oh, he's going to get done here, and then he does the same thing like Saki, holds them off and wriggles through space, and then he starts an attack and he's driving through the middle of the pitch. That's not really what left backs do. So he has a lot of, understandably, midfielders' attributes, but he's also got kind of a low centre of gravity. He can defend well. He was never beaten. Like as I say, he's unconventional as a left back, but my God, he's effective and he's brilliant for Arsenal.
They loved him in the England squad. That was noticeable. How actually Saka had the same effect when he joined the England squad as a 17-year-old. But just one of those characters everybody immediately had warmed to, sort of lit up the place, was able to mix with the older guys, mix with the younger guys. And that, again, you're sort of going, he's an 18-year-old kid. And he's, it's big Thomas Tuchel's, boot camp, and it's all a bit big, scary and stuff. And that will sustain him as well. He's just got that air of, as we were saying, a kind of ready-born major footballer, just springing, box fresh almost.
Yeah. Martin, you touched on... Sorry, go on.
It's just like, again, we've spoken about Jude Bellingham for so long, and it's all about his upbringing and stuff. You hear about how big an influence his family was. Remember the piece? I think it was Gary who did it.
Gary, yeah.
About the fact his mum has started like a kind of a group for mentoring parents of talented young footballers. Like clearly these are like,
Smart.
I think his upbringing is about being confident and like taking a stand and standing up for yourself kind of thing. You can see that, and it shows on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Martin, I just wanted to touch on Real Madrid in the game. Obviously, we've talked about the Bernabeu and the second leg. Much has been made of that, and you wrote an excellent piece about that. But on the night, were you disappointed? Were you surprised by their performance?
It was one of those. I thought Real Madrid would win because you'd seen them do that so often.
Yeah.
But it was quite strange because but having thought they would win, when they got beat, and when they got beat quite heavily, you do look at it and you go, yeah, but this has been coming. Because you can't, you'd seen them so many times where you're walking away going, how did I got away with that?
Finding a way to win, as I fumed about on the last time.
And so many times, funnily enough, against English opposition as well. Chelsea, there was a Chelsea game that was an absolute travesty as far as the outcome was concerned. Chelsea were much the better team. I'm sure there was a Man City game as well that they got away with.
Couple.
And so you look at it and think, actually, this makes sense.
Yeah.
I do get the feeling that this season that there is it's a natural end to the Ancelotti era, and it's a shame that that just about everyone apart from Alex Ferguson, the natural end is when there's a disappointment, there's a dip. Fergie was that was the last act of absolute genius, was knowing precisely when to get out.
Yeah.
But I do think this will be Ancelotti's last season there. I think Ancelotti thinks it'll probably be his last season there.
Yeah, I thought when you saw them sit in a kind of 4-4-2 and you've got Bellingham playing left midfield and Rodrigo playing right midfield and properly playing midfield, not playing in much of an attacking sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought home to you what a job Ancelotti's done, because he's been juggling this sort of squad that isn't brilliantly put together in terms of, and they don't have much off the bench either.
Yeah.
You know, they're bringing on Diaz and Vasquez, and it's not frightening to Arsenal. So, in the sense of in hindsight, it's been coming. You thought, he's been papering over a lot of cracks there, and at some point, he gets found out by a really good team, and Arsenal are that in terms of how well they're coached, how well they're structured, disciplined. There is nobody probably better in England. You know that they will find you out if you've got those flaws. You're right.
And what you got to remember with Arsenal, when we're saying, it seems like an outlier of a result, which I totally get. One of the reasons... outlier of a performance, sorry. But one of the reasons it's an outlier is because of the injuries that they've had. I mean, you can't get away. You can't get away from it. I think there are just some campaigns, some seasons, when the problems that a coach has had to deal with, there isn't a way around it. It's just it's insurmountable. I always say the season when Liverpool lost every single centre half at the club. And couldn't retain the title. Well, what are you going to do about that? And Arsenal have lost an entire forward line, including, at least one of the most effective players in Europe.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do?
And Gabriel too. Like that's another huge, feather in the cap from this performance is that everyone thought, oh God, they've not got Gabriel in this, And Kivior stepped in and did really well. It might be a different task over there, but
just the second leg to go, Arsenal
it's
fans.
It's a noisy old place. I mean, you've been, haven't you? To the new one.
Yeah.
It's, it's a fearsome place to go to.
As you said in the end of your piece from the game, Martin, nice and easy, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine, Arsenal fans. Don't worry. Time for a little break, which means it's time for the quiz question. Who am I talking about when I say a former footballer who, like Declan Rice, played for Arsenal and West Ham, but spent most of his short career at Blackburn and Tottenham? Find out after the break. Welcome back to the Game Football Podcast from The Times. I'm Tom Clark and I've got Martin Samuel, Johnny Northcroft and Gregor Robertson with me. Johnny, straight in. I think you've got a very good record on the quiz questions, actually. The answer was?
David Bentley.
David Bentley. I will be totting up answers at the end of the season. I think it's tight between you and Gregor. Anyway, to Paris, and a tough night for Aston Villa. I was speaking to Charlotte Dunker, who was there with you, Martin, this morning. She was just saying that last goal, that third goal. That third goal, such a shame. But before we get onto that and the bigger sense of the tie, we kind of have to start with PSG, don't we? I mean, what a team. What a team.
Really,
we spent
really
a lot of the first half of the show talking about one player, Declan Rice, and then talked about other Arsenal players, of course. But PSG as a team, as a unit, Martin, it was what a performance.
Just absolutely brilliant. They really are. Look, with all due respect to Arsenal, probably the best final if you take it over the whole. Rather than one brilliant performance against Real Madrid, notwithstanding. Barcelona versus PSG is probably the form teams and the most pleasing on the eye and at the moment I would say, which is potentially what the final could be. And they were exceptional. They were just exceptional. I mean, look, Aston Villa didn't defend badly at all. I mean, Matty Cash getting booked early on.
Never a booking.
What? Sorry?
Never a booking.
Never a booking, but he got booked, and that caused them a problem because in the end, Emery is still a manager that plays percentages, and he's still a pragmatic guy, and he would rather, not risk ending with 10 men. So he bought Disasi on at half time, and good night Vienna, because he's just not in the he's not the same level. And PSG were exceptional. PSG's forward line is something to behold at the moment. I mean,
it's watching it. I can't work out whether they're one of the first teams that I've seen where there's not like one like totemic, talismanic. They're all kind of equally brilliant in different ways. That's a really crap way of analysing. But there's not like one Lionel Messi or a Cristiano Ronaldo. Or
they've tried that.
They've tried that, and they've now got 3 midfielders who are all brilliant in individual ways but work brilliantly together, and 3 forwards who are all brilliant individually but work together. Am I right, Johnny?
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, in one sense, there are, it's a positional Luis Enrique Spanishy team. If you look at the positions, but then in another way, they're really unconventional. First of all, the individual players are all a bit unconventional. The things they do. I mean, Desiree Doué and his box of tricks was just. I was yelling at the TV in a more positive way with that. Just incredible. But as you say, he's gone for 3 forwards who are all just brilliant one-on-one players, great dribblers, and have a sort of slight off-the-cuff nature to them. And then 3 midfielders who just keep the ball all day. And it's like, that's more of the same. That idea of a team that's built with, contrasting and complementary kind of qualities among players. Abandon that. Let's just have lots of this and lots of that. And in a way, the third goal was my favourite, because you're watching Vitinha and Neves I think they just pass to each other for a minute. They're just knocking the ball back and forth in midfield, and you're thinking, they've just decided to play.
They've given up. You're thinking,
taking 2-1,
they're settling
happy
for 2-1. Villa are settling for 2-1. Everyone's settling for 2-1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then at the minute that Villa think that, the ball goes into Dembele, they change the angle, and the fullback's behind your defence, and he's then chopping back inside and scoring
He's not bad too, is he?
He's not bad too.
Love Nuno Mendes. Love him.
Although
I saw him in flesh against Barcelona though, and Yamal absolutely tortured him.
I was going to say, Rodgers did him in the first half.
Yeah, he has got the odd blip defensively, but he completely shackled Salah too, so he's no muck. But I'd say also part of me watching this team think it's the closest you've seen to like Pep's Barcelona.
I was thinking that without
like the speed,
Messi, but
it's the speed they move the ball. Like it's
and
not
speed they press as well.
Yeah, it just. I don't know. It's different. The thing that they did so remarkably was move the ball like at just dizzying speed. You talk about the midfield 3, and we know who the Barca's best midfield 3 were. But the speed that they played football at, it was all just like 1 or 2 touch, triangles everywhere, and it was dizzying. And they are dizzying to the opposition. Like I have to say, I think Villa played well. Like, I think they defended well, and there were periods where there was like a lull, and that was one of them, where just before they got the third goal. But there were also periods where you thought, my God, this wave's going to crash over them and it could be like 4 or 5. And they held firm. Like I think they defended well. Like it's understandable to go there and that be your game plan and try and go back to Villa Park and hope that the whole end can drag them through. But I think Villa did all right.
Statistically, they played better than Liverpool did when Liverpool won 1-0.
I was thinking like PSG scored 3 worlds and missed a load of sitters against Liverpool. You're thinking, God, that's just slightly unfair on Aston Villa, isn't it? You just spread it a little bit.
If you look at the stats, it's really similar. PSG's attacking is about the same number of shots and XG, but Villa actually created way more than Liverpool did in that match, which is Emery's specialty. Villa fans, I know, had been saying before the game, if we can keep it to 2 goals, then we've got a chance. It's just, it's a manner of that last one, isn't it?
It's also the nature of the way that PSG attack as well. I was about to just walk away from the telly briefly before the Kvaratskhelia goal, and they started that attack, and I was like, this is a goal. Even when they were in their own half. And I know that sounds mental, but you're watching them unpick Villa, and you're like, oh God, they're in trouble here. And it is that, what you said, Greg, I think you just said it then, a wave. You're like, they're going to be drowned here. Like they're in serious trouble.
And one of the best things is Luis Enrique and his reinvention or rebirth as a coach, because you were at the game as well, Martin. I think when his Spain team, when they went out to Morocco in 2010, I mean that Spanish team had absolutely gone down a cul-de-sac of tiki-taka, keeping the ball. You're looking at Enrique thinking, oh mate, come on, you can't. You've just gone so far with this. I felt sad for him at that point. He looked like this, I don't think he was ever appreciated enough at Barcelona for what he won, because he wasn't quite Pep.
No.
And then he goes into the wilderness, and then he ends up kind of, I wouldn't say squandering, but not being able to get across the line with Spain.
Yeah.
And at that point, if you'd said to me, who is Luis Enrique? I'd have said, well, he's dogmatic. He's just this coach who can't free himself of all this sort of tiki-taka doctrine. And now this team's, he's coached them beautifully, but it looks like he's learned something from them. He's loosened up in the way that you see it on the touchline, but it's as I said earlier, it's a combination between that framework, but then the individuality and the freedom within it.
And he's reinvented or changed the direction of a club.
Yeah.
Because this was a club that was absolutely married to this sort of Galactico idea and this idea of big name. The midfield we're talking about, Verratti, I think.
Rabiot.
He wasn't. It wasn't a popular decision. They loved Verratti at PSG, and the fans loved him as well. And it wasn't a popular thing when Enrique moves him to one side.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be. It's never going to be without controversy, is it? When you decide to dispense with Lionel Messi and Neymar and all of these guys, and they lose Mbappe to Real Madrid. So it's an incredible achievement to come back from that. And what he's getting out of Dembele, for instance,
one of the great flops and blah blah blah, all that stuff. Yeah,
and what he's getting. So it's a magnificent managerial performance.
Yeah,
it really is. It's very easy to go, oh, it's an easy league and stuff. I mean, they're 5 or 6 games away from being the only unbeaten team in the history of French football.
Right.
So it's not that easy, then, is it? Because Arsenal did it for us, 20 years ago or whatever. No one's ever done it in France. Yeah. Well, all of the Galactico PSG teams, the Lyon team that won the league 7 years on the spin, Saint Etienne, Michel Platini, no one's ever gone the season unbeaten, but PSG are very close to it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Villa. Gregor, you said they played well. What were the positives, do you think, from this game? Try not to mention John McGinn straight away, but obviously he did have
his bum played a big role in the goal.
Big role in the goal, yeah.
It seriously, it did.
It did. No, it did. Do you know, when I saw the goal, I'm thinking, Gregor will love that.
Yeah.
Gregor
that was the biggest.
Absolutely love that goal. Yeah,
absolutely
love that goal. That was my first thought, mate. It really was.
When they scored that, you thought, my God, they're playing the smart, and then. That was a worldie by Dewey, but I think it was Rodgers kind of slightly one time they weren't close enough. They weren't just slightly half-hearted in terms of
is there enough? We're obviously saying how great PSG are because they were, and the third goal, as I said with Charlotte and Martin, you do feel slightly kills the tie, but there was enough there for Villa fans to cling on to for a second leg at home, right? In the terms of the problems that they caused for PSG going forward.
Yeah, I think I still think they'll probably, broadly speaking, be the same. Set up the same. They might not be quite as deep, but we saw what PSG do. How they play, no matter where they are. How they played when they approached the game at Anfield. It was like they're still going to go and dominate the game. You'll need a bit more sort of adventure on the counter. I think there were some times in the first half in particular where they'd win the ball back and they were kind of looking for that forward pass and it wasn't really there. They did well other times. Maybe Rodgers was running down the line, he'd play a big switch to Rashford that he just about managed to wrestle and hold possession, but it was always like fight outer end of the outer margin stuff, just about keeping possession. They're gonna have to commit more people forward when they win the ball back in the next leg. But they're still in it.
They are. They have to score and then see how PSG deal with it, because this is psychologically different to going to Anfield. PSG had to make the game. They had to go and win. They had to be proactive. Last night they had to be the same. This is a young team, and you've just got to ask them the question when you've got that really difficult place to be in mentally, when you're just trying to hold on to something. It's like the Macy Milan team you talked about, Martin. That's a weird position to be in. You've just got to get out there with a 0-0 psychologically. So can they deal with it? I mean, I'm sure they can. Yeah. Is the bottom line, because that team does look fearless. this looks like a proper team. But you have to ask that question, and Villa Park is a brilliant place to ask it.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
it can sweep anyone away.
Yeah. Speaking in the first half of the show, as we did about Lewis Skelly and players with swagger and confidence, former Lincoln legend Morgan Rogers doing the Thierry Henry of the Parc des Princes celebration on the corner flag was pretty iconic as well. Sorry, if you got John McGinn in, I'm getting Morgan Rogers in. All right, that's the deal. Martin, I wanted to just finish by asking you about Emi Martinez, who's the subject of your piece on the Times website now. A difficult night for him. Is this the kind of, you're in the Champions League now, mate, this is the big leagues for Villa?
Look, it's...
Come on, he won the World Cup. It's not
He
new.
won
I'm
the World Cup.
asking Martin about
that's the
his
whole
piece.
point. He won the World Cup. I just think I had a pal of mine, and he played trombone. He was the trombone player for Haircut 100. A guy called Vince Sullivan.
Got to admit, I didn't think this is where you were going when I asked you about Emi Martinez.
And I used to play the drums, and I can remember, and Vince was a really, really good jazz trombonist and stuff. And I can remember asking him, what do you like to hear from drummers? And he said, as little as possible. And, obviously, we're not talking Max Roach and stuff like that. But as a rule, play your part. I feel the same about goalkeepers. All of that turning up, with a cap, with a cockle on it,
the
covered in-
pre-match.
Yeah.
I just think it's a hard enough role as it is. You make one mistake, you're the lemon. And I know he's a big personality and a big character, and a man who is not scared of fixing the Golden Glove award to the end of his penis and waving it around at the end of a
I'm not
World
sure
Cup
that's-
final.
I'm not
getting the autoplay now.
I'm not sure that's exactly what he did.
Is that right?
But
We know the time you're referring to. I'm not sure that's factually accurate.
I know he's full of beans, as they say, but I just don't know why you'd want to build that pressure around yourself.
But do you think that showed in the game, though? Do you think because there's some, and you're not one of them, but some with the goals saying, he could do better with the cravat scalia at his near post and things,
This is the thing. I've professional footballers that I've spoken to said he could have done. You don't get beat at your near post. Now that went in like a rocket.
Yeah.
I can see it, but I can also see they're incredibly high standards. We're in the highest standard club competition on the planet. So, and it's the quarter-final stage. You're playing one of the best teams in Europe, possibly the best team in Europe. We might find that out in a few months' time. And I don't know why you'd make it all about you as a goalkeeper. I just know coaches I speak to, managers I speak to, they feel the same as Vince did about drummers, as little as possible, right? You fine if you've got a save to make the save. We're all delighted, but it's that sort of moment where there's lulls in the game and the goalkeeper's
Do you
had
mean it on
nothing
the
to
pitch
do.
as well, though? Because one of the great goalkeepers, Peter Schmeichel, was the loudest player on any pitch, wasn't he?
But he wasn't much given to chasing
Didn't
out
say much
towards-
off the pitch.
But he
in
wasn't much
terms
given
of-
to just chasing out to the... If he had nothing to do, he was very happy to do nothing,
Right.
is what I mean. He wasn't suddenly going to go chasing out to the corner flag to collect a ball that the left-back's got covered anyway, just so you remind the coach that he's there. That's the sort of goalkeeping that, we're coming back to a phrase that was used earlier. Just play the bongos sometimes. Just play the bongos. Play the bongos sometimes.
Trombone.
You don't need to go to war with France. It's Aston Villa's game, actually. It's not about Argentina, this one. It's Aston Villa's game.
Gregor, thoughts as a former defender?
Yeah, I fundamentally agree, but that just comes from I don't know.
You just hate
Me.
goalkeepers.
No, that's me. That's me.
Mate,
He's
it comes
obviously someone who's larger than life. He obviously quite enjoys winding people up, and he obviously also feels that it's not going to affect him. He feels confident enough to go on the pitch and smile, and I think I get the near post thing. I think that was a great goal. I think Dewey's was actually the one that was slightly stranger because he kind of knew, he kind of saw it and he just didn't dive. But again, I don't think any of this is is probably because of any of that.
That was the only thing I thought, that both Doué's goal and Kvaratskhelia, they went high, they went over his head, and you just, when you see a pattern like that, you just think, have they been told to do that with Martinez? Because he is quite, he's big and he's fixed. He's not a brilliant.
Well, all you can say is we're having this conversation now. We're analysing in fine detail whether he had made any sort of error, marginal error for any of these goals, and we probably wouldn't have had this conversation if he hadn't done what he done. So he has heaped pressure on himself.
That's what
but whether it's really affected him or not, we'll never know.
There's two positions on the field where if you make a lick, there's 60,000 people on your back. One's goalkeeper and one's centre forward. So why add to that? Why make yourself? Look, if that's the guy that he is, that's the guy that is. But I look at Emery and I'm thinking, really, he's a fabulous goalkeeper, this guy. Unai Emery, I don't think would want that from his goalkeeper if it was up to him. He would want a little bit more,
focus.
He wouldn't, but I think, I've listened to him talk about Martinez. I think he just takes it off with the smooth with him. And when he was building that team, Martinez was his guy. He was the first guy to bring ego in a positive way to that Villa team.
I can understand that.
He set the tone with his self-belief. So I think he wouldn't want that, but I think he understands it's part of the package. It's what Martinez needs.
Yeah.
Tie's not over. Penalty shootout, you never know.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate, good luck.
It's all
Good
set
luck
up
if
for
you
Emmy
do it.
at Villa Park in the second leg. Villa fans will certainly be hoping for that outcome. Johnny, guys, I just wanted to finish with a nod to the other two games. Inter Milan getting a big win at Bayern Munich. What a lovely goal by Lautaro Martinez.
The back heel.
What a lovely back heel. Taking on a shot like that, absolutely beautiful. And Barcelona, a huge win. Martin, you touched on it there earlier when you were talking about potential dream finals for the neutrals. A huge win, a 4-0 win against Borussia Dortmund. I just wanted to talk about a couple of players that were kind of on show. Less so Henrik Mkhitaryan and Matteo Darmian in the Inter Milan game, but particularly Rafinha, former Leeds United player, of course, very highly rated at Leeds, but now at Barcelona, tipped by some to win the Ballon d'Or. He's got 22 goals and 22 assists this season. That stat I mentioned in the intro is 19 goal involvements in the Champions League this season, which is equal with a season by Lionel Messi. He got a goal and 2 assists last night. I just wanted to end with a quick debate on whether we view people too quickly in the Premier League. Did anyone see this coming for Rafinha, Johnny?
He was rated.
He was rated. I mean, Arsenal wanted
If you're going to sit here and tell me...
No, Arsenal tried to sign him, I think 2022 or something like that. He was, in fact, they'd assigned him for the Saka position, ironically. But he was rated by clubs and scouts and recruitment people. And at that time, I remember thinking, that's interesting, because I see a really good player there, but I don't necessarily see a world beater. And clearly they know a lot more than me. But I don't know. He is better than the player we saw at Leeds. I think we can say that he's evolved. Maybe it's that magic of being a Brazilian at Barcelona has brought that sort of thing out in him. I think he's clearly got an appetite for goals. When you look at the David Nugent style finish for when he poked Kabasi's header over the line, but that's part of it. He's got that. Clearly, he's developed that ego thing that Ronaldo obviously had. The scorers had that. He's now focused on end product. But I do think he was always rated by people in the know.
I'm not having that anyone thought he was going to be winning the Ballon d'Or.
No, I think there's a difference.
That's right.
There's like a bit of a difference with like Darmian and Mkhitaryan. Like that, I think he wasn't playing for one of the bigger clubs in the first place. Oh, Leeds are a big club. Don't write in, please. I agree with that. But they were in a
Stay tuned to the EFL
they were fighting
show
relegation most years, and they were Anyway, move on. So when he got the move to Barcelona, you think, oh, that's a big move. And actually, the first 2 years have been quite up and down for him. There have been flashes of his kind of brilliance, but he could have been moved on in the summer, partly because Barca are skint and they need to move people on to sign other players. But this season, my God, we talk about front threes. We spoke about PSG.
Yeah,
they've got 82 goals between them.
But
Lewandowski and Yamal and Rafinha.
Let's get it right though. Yamal's the best player in that team still.
His finish too. Did you see his finish?
My God, yeah.
Control the outside his left foot, then toppled it with his left foot. Like he's just you talk about swagger again. He's a joke, that guy. And as I say, I will never forget that game against PSG. He tortured Nuno Mendes, and he tortures most people. You know what he's going to do. He's going to cut inside on his left foot, and 7 times out of 10. But the other 3, he'll chop down the line, and he can do the thing that he doesn't even have to wriggle inside like Saka does, because he's quicker.
Yeah,
he's kind of more lithe and agile, and But when he cuts on in the left, he can just pick out the top corner, or he can float across to the back post that Rafinha headed back for Lewandowski. When the 3 of them combined for one of the goals, he's the best.
The other thing is with Rafinha and all, players are allowed to improve. They're allowed to change.
Absolutely.
And you can. There's 100 players out there you can say, did anyone expect him to, when you... Well, no, you didn't expect... no one expected Mo Salah to come back as one of the greatest centre-forwards in English football history if you'd have seen him at Chelsea. Because if he was playing like that, Chelsea would never have sold him. Exactly the same with Kevin De Bruyne. If he'd have been playing for Chelsea the way that he plays for has played for Manchester City for the last, 8 seasons or whatever it is, it's not like Jose Mourinho isn't an idiot. I mean, he could have told you that Salah and De Bruyne are good players, but they weren't playing like that when they were at Chelsea. Players change. Yeah. They get different coaches. They get different teammates around them, bring stuff out of them that wasn't there before. I would, it might be controversial, but I would say that he's probably got better footballers around him at Barcelona than he had at Leeds.
Now they're definitely going to write in about that, Martin.
And that maybe, we're seeing the results of that.
Yeah. Some swagger and brilliant goals in the Champions League, and some brilliant analysis and bongos on the Game podcast. Martin Samuel, Johnny Northcroft,
beat a bongo, mate, I tell you.
And Gregor Robertson. Thank you.
You can beat a bongo. That's the point of a bongo. Really.
Very much. Fade out, Neil. Very much for joining me, and thank you too for listening. We'll be back on Monday. We'll see you then.